So the other thing that happened at Papworth since my atrial fibrillation started is to fix the atrial fibrillation, if they can, was to do a cardioversion or an ablation. That was very much considered as a priority by them, that if I have one of those operations, then the heart rhythm will come back and be more normal again, which then again could prevent or delay the inevitability of having a heart transplant. So that was something that was very clearly defined by them. Due to COVID though, unfortunately, I went in for the pre-assessment, but then there wasn't the opportunity to have that. So I was on the amiodirone with an aim to bring that under control, but it was very much for those next few months, it was just about keeping stable. We were still in the midst of lockdown and things happening, closing and opening. I had another update then at Papworth in December with just some more blood tests. And again, for then, fortunately, things did continue to improve and be stable since that time. So they didn't deteriorate. And so it again felt like it was the right decision not to go on the list. They say bad luck comes in threes. I then, just before Christmas, or it may have been Christmas Eve, there was a flood in my flat. I remember I went out from my room and seeing just water that had been dripping, and there was a load of stuff on the table, and I tried to move it and I ended up slipping and hitting my head on the floor. And my brother happened to be in at the time and heard what happened. My Apple Watch actually went off again. I feel like I'm a good advert for them, but perhaps in a bad way, but it said, have you had a sudden shock or fall? Which absolutely I had. And had I been by myself, I'm sure it could have helped me. But fortunately my brother was there. I felt okay, but I'd hit my head and I ended up going to bed. Not much I could do, and I didn't think to go to hospital at the time. And then I ended up having a food delivery and a box, and they left it at the bottom of the stairs. And for some reason I just thought, oh, it's not a problem, I'll just go and pick it up. And I ended up picking it up, bringing it into my flat, and then I think fainting or falling onto my bed. And this was all within 24 hours of having fallen down the stairs after the leak and hitting my head. And I made the decision then it's probably a good idea to go to hospital, because if I'm also on a blood thinner, so if there's internal bleeding, that would take also longer to stop, and that's obviously not a good thing either. And so yeah, it sounded like a bit of a disastrous few days, and I just felt very unlucky about that, but went into hospital. At the time, also because of my heart condition, they did a scan. They said everything was fine from the internal bleeding perspective, but because of my heart condition, they were worried that I may have fainted as a result of the heart condition I've got. And so they wanted me to stay overnight. And I did push back in them, because I know, having stayed in hospital, the sleeplessness, and actually I think I just need a good night's sleep at home, and that would be best for me. So almost a little bit against their will, I did go home, and fortunately things seemed to resolve themselves. Going into 2021, over New Year's Eve, my partner came to visit, and I had a restful break, and I was catching up with people. One of the big things I did, which I think is important to talk about right now, was about decluttering. So I ended up watching and reading things, two of them, essentialism, and the other one was minimalism. I think this sits somewhere between the essentialism and minimalism, and I think we collect so much stuff. I ended up moving into my flat where I currently live about 9 years ago now, and I bought loads of stuff in and I put them in this storage area, and I've just, I guess over time, maybe like many of us, have accumulated stuff. And I remember reading about and people talking about clearing out stuff during lockdown and the first lockdown in 2019, and because I was in my flat and I couldn't go anywhere, they said at the moment I couldn't travel, and with travel restrictions with COVID as well, I thought I'm gonna get hold of this. And I started using Olio, where I was just giving away anything and everything, and it was a really satisfying process of someone else using stuff that I ultimately is rubbish or that I didn't need anymore. And I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she said, you can make money from some of this stuff. And I kind of thought, yeah, but then the hassle and selling it, but why not? I'll give it a go. So I opened up my eBay account that I've not used for years. And the first thing that I put on was a all-in-one sleeping bag, like a wearable sleeping bag. So you could put the trousers and the arms in, and I ended up selling it for, I think, £60 or something. And I thought, wow, this is like my first sale, and it gave me a bit of motivation. And then I started selling everything. I had a broken watch that it was working the last time I used it, but the battery had run out and it was a bit scratched. So I literally listed it. Working last time I used it, bit scratched, needs a new battery, put it on, and I think I got £40 for that. And I just couldn't believe some of the things that I was, and the process that I went through. And I'll share an article at the link to this episode. But really, what's it all for, and what do we really need, and how much do we need? There was someone, again, I think it was in essentialism, when they were like, they live with key items, and a process of thinking, yeah, what gives you, Marie Kondo, what gives you joy? I feel like I'm sharing it now as an important way of living, of thinking, how much ultimately do we need? And also, I thought that does come into my mind, if something happens and I do have a transplant and for whatever reason I don't come through that operation, then someone else is going to have to go through all of this stuff. And actually, why do I still need it or carry it with me? And it's a good process to get rid of it. And it felt so satisfying when I got to the end of that, how much money I made, so that was good. But how freeing and light I felt, that there was things in like old technology that I used to love when I used it. I used to have like an Apple Newton and this eMate from 2018, 2019, but I hadn't touched it or used it for 15 plus years. And yet there was a collector online or someone wanted it that bought all of it together, and they were just so happy to receive it. And whilst I got so much joy from it when I used it, there was no need. And other things, I had an Apple laptop that the hard disk had died, but I still got £100 for the laptop and whatever else. So there's these hidden gems. I'm getting sucked into the excitement of making £100 from an old laptop, but it was the overall doing and the process of decluttering and just feeling freer without having that stuff that you just really don't need. I'd really encourage you, if you're listening to this and you've got excess of anything, then there's lots of great places. And again, I'll put some links in the article that I've shared. There's some great links, whether it be Facebook Marketplace or Olio, and things that don't need to go to landfill, but that other people can really value and use. And it was a really great process for me to then get to the end of that feeling just so much lighter, and knowing that ultimately someone else wouldn't have to deal with what I've got. If at some stage we're all going to be gone, whenever that happens, they don't need to go through all my stuff. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out the British Heart Foundation, Cardiomyopathy UK and Save 9 Lives for more information. Why not comment on the video, tell me what you think or ask a question, and subscribe to the channel to continue to follow my journey.